today I had the privilege and the honor of accepting an award on behalf of Jessica. It was an award given by the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce, a Woman of Excellence Award. As a mentor of excellence, which of course she is. And so I just want to show, you haven't seen it yet. So.
Yeah, I was in the meeting.
And I want to say this because I said at the meeting, the reason Jessica wasn't there in person is because she was doing a 3-day training on trauma-informed mental health first aid. And so as usual, Jessica is putting others before herself. So she, so this is this beautiful award she got.
Aww, love it.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And
Congratulations.
You should have received that. It was so perfect for you.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving your yeah.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Actually, you can have this bag too. It even says love on it.
Aww.
Thank you so much. You're gonna continue, Chair?
No. I'm passing the meeting over to the chair. To state that it wasn't right for you to do all that and then get it. So,
Like that.
Really, so that's the first one that they've given out. So.
Yeah, it's an inaugural.
Oh, nice. Even better. Way to set the pace.
I'm really thankful. Thank you, Linda. So we will recite our mission statement. Don't have it for us.
Haven't done roll call yet.
Oh, sorry. Roll call. Sorry, Todd. Yep. Roll call.
All right, here we go. Jessica.
Present.
Ernest.
Here.
Jeanette.
Here.
Mary.
Here.
Whitney.
Here.
Kathleen.
Here.
Suzanne.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
And Isabel.
Here.
All right, let's recite our mission. Act
As a strong advocate to justice and equal opportunity, providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights.
All right. So you have an icebreaker.
I do.
Okay.
I do. All right. Let's get up.
All right.
All right.
Like it.
So,
Should have worn my gym shoes.
no, we're not. All right here is the line.
Okay.
This is the line right here. We're facing going this way, one way or the other. Yeah, doesn't matter which face. Let's face this way. All right. So, you can either go.
Yeah.
You can either go this way of the line, or stay down the middle. This way of the line, stay down the middle. Okay? All right.
Can you repeat it again for the people in the back?
Okay, for the people in the back, you can either go this, if you want, you can come here. This way. Just try to stay, if you don't care.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, you can do a little compliment. You can go this side, or stay down the middle. This or that. Either this or that, or deep sea or outer space. That's a Boys or Beatles? Beach Boys or Beatles? Okay. Come on back. Ooh. Yoga or running? Yoga? No, yoga. Okay. Go back. Coffee or tea? Coffee or tea? No, you gotta pick one. You just one? Wow, you're great. I gotta have both flavors. Day or night? Night house is better. It's like sleeping. Oh, cook a meal. Cook the meal or clean up after the meal. Cook the meal or clean up after the meal. A lot of good stuff. Hamburgers, hot dogs. Hamburgers, hot dogs. What's the kill? I got you. That's the kids. I got you. Come on back. Comedy or drama? You didn't even wait. Comedy or drama? We always see a couple dramas and things like that. A little old school here. You guys are about that age. Friends or Seinfeld? Friends or Seinfeld? Oh, let me see. I should have put that on because I guess friends. Yeah, that's I should have put. Yeah, I should have put friends and let me see. Yeah, that's good. All right. Chocolate or vanilla? You both?
That's not the way that
So we're looking to the goals, so we're going to the one that's this side.
Vanilla.
Got you. We got last one, this is the last one. Rain or snow? Rain or snow? Cool. Thank you,
Later. I did find this back there. Do you have scissors?
Ooh, I might have scissors in my bag. What's your stuff?
Alright, so I got everything else later. These are like.
All right, so we're going to do this activity called the privilege privilege Eve activity. I mainly help spread this out. You just need 7 bowls. So what you're gonna do, is there are gonna be 7 stations with 7 different privileges. I want you not to overthink when you read the sentences. So for example, this one on sexual privilege, it says, I have formalized or could formalize my love relationship legally through marriage. That agrees with you, then you take a beat, and if it doesn't, you don't take a beat. So if you read it and it resonates, you take a beat. If it doesn't, you don't take a beat. And there'll be 7 different privileges, and you just go around. It's quiet, kind of like think, but not too hard about it. Yeah, do you mind just spreading them out? Maybe like 2.
We have another
here, 2
table over there. Oh, you could put them on stage, yep. Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so they're not either of those.
No, it's.
All right, so this is gonna require y'all to get up and move around. Oh, and then grab a little cup if you wanna put the juice in this. And we do have string that, we bring scissors, we're gonna see if they
Yeah.
cut. So you can wear your beads after this. So take a cup. I'm gonna sit out on this one, maybe so I can self-care. But I would like everyone to just please. So where do we go? Like, where, are you?
There's a.
And you read one thing on the sheet? You read, there's like 7 or 8 statements on each sheet.
Do you get 7 or 8 beats, or you should get 1 beat?
If the statement applies to you.
So if there's 7 things that you agree with on that, then you would get 7 beats.
Yes.
Up to 7 beats.
Up to or I think it's 7 to 8. And we could go in whatever order. Yeah, whatever order, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you do all 7. Do y'all want necklaces or bracelets?
Bracelets. Bracelets.
Oh, yeah.
So it worked out?
Oh,
Let me see.
All in your lead, I got it.
Alright.
And you did 1 for.
1, yes, 7, it's 7 sentences per sheet. So if they all agree, you get all 7.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So, yeah,
When I read it, that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
If it resonates, think about it. Dot.
I've heard great things on the trauma informed first aid. So, yeah. Yeah. I'm so good.
Oh, you look in order.
Well, I can go backwards order, but.
And then when you're done, if you can count how many beads you have.
If you like to make jewelry out of it, you can get string. Todd thought of that.
Well, that's why Todd does what he does.
Make sure to count how many you have.
All of them.
You count how many you have? If I'm doing my math right, the most you can have it should be 6.
Wait, there were 8 categories?
8 times 7, yeah.
Okay.
Make sure I got it. I did that math right?
Yeah,
Yeah, 7 categories, 7 statements.
49.
7 categories or 8
Oh,
categories?
sorry. I thought, sorry, 49.
Okay.
I think it's 7.
7.
49,
7,
sorry.
40, yeah. That's what I thought.
My head is 56. I wanted to be 56. Can we cut down or? I did the same thing when I presented it. I had 8 in my head. I see it's like posting, you're cooking different things through the holidays.
There's a lot of birthdays.
Get it by world.
I know, I'm like, do I do like? Oh. I actually started, like, there were a couple where I was like, oh, I think I like that color better, so I'm gonna pull that color out of that.
I definitely put yes.
Chaotic neutral.
Oh, yeah, like.
I don't know what it is.
Chaotic good.
I don't want a lot of cake in the house.
Whatever it is.
probably
I
be
know
like
I'm chaotic.
lawful.
Yeah, you're lawful something, right?
Hopefully lawful good. Well, the Human Rights Commission, so like that indicates, I think, chaotic, and not chaotic good, but some sort of bureaucrat. The string is up there. So as you
Yeah, I'm
guys,
doing this and now I'm jealous of yours. I don't know what that says.
Feed envy.
Yep, you do.
I think we have a couple hours, so you can redo it. And dump it off, restart, for sure. So we'll spend about maybe 15 more minutes on this. And I'll just talk as you guys put together. I know some people are counting as they put on the stream, so I'll wait to do that. So the different categories that we had were, I have no idea if my audio's, is it speaking loud enough to the mic? Do I need to sit down? Okay. So the different categories.
Oh.
Did it all fall?
I've got 2 of the ones down here.
All right, so the categories were race, religion, class, cisgender, citizen privilege, ability privilege, and sexuality privilege. I think we have time to maybe go over maybe 3. Are there ones you wanted to talk about over others?
Are the experts that you see in like mainstream media on your finger saying social
Anyone else
Thank you very much.
wanna vote on? Not vote, but any other topic that you wanna discuss?
Which is one I was here?
Oh, I don't know, I just took
Let me see if I
them.
can figure it out.
It was race, religion, citizenship, ability, sexuality,
Citizenship.
citizenship. I will do class, citizenship, and anyone else?
Ability.
Ability? Okay, sounds good. Always have time to do more, but me. So, who has 0 beads? No one. That means we all have privilege. Sorry, educators excited. Okay, so we'll go over each one. So I'll read ability first. So I can assume that I will easily have physical access to any building. How many of that picked up a bead for that?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never been taunted, teased, or ostracized due to a disability. I can do well in a challenging situation without being told I'm an inspiration for my ability status.
Mhm.
I can go shopping alone and expect to find appropriate accommodations to make the experience hassle-free. I do have school due to my ability status.
Mhm.
If I am not hired for a job, I do not question if it was due to my physical or mental ability. Other people do not think that my mental ability is limited because I have a physical disability. What are y'all thoughts on this one as you read it? Did anything come up for you?
I think was it the third or fourth question?
I do well in challenging situations without, oh, no.
No, what about
Just went to a
identifying,
whole different one.
about being identified for your skill or something?
The third one was I do well in a challenging situation without being told I'm an inspiration
Nope.
to my ability.
No, I think it's the one after that.
I can go shopping alone. No. I do not have to request accommodations at work due to my ability.
Nope.
If I were hired, I do not have to question if it's due to my physical or mental ability.
No, must be number 2.
I'm never taunted, teased, or ostracized due to a disability.
Ah, no.
Here, maybe you can find it.
This one it was. Nope. Oh, I have never been taunted, teased, or ostracized due to my. Nope, that's not it. So it wasn't one of those. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
It's on a different sheet.
Okay.
Must be-
Yeah.
Has everyone been able to count? Ernest, are you still counting yours?
Yes.
Are you almost done counting? I'll go to the next one. I'll wait. I'm no pressure. All right. I wanted to say about the ability privilege. Reading this one, it always makes it. Since then, made me think about how I access buildings. I was just checking to get down here. I had to go downstairs. I think do they have elevators come down here?
No, not here.
You have to come in from outside to the, yeah.
It just makes you think about places and access that even though you don't have access, like even to my house, I have stairs. I don't have another way.
Yeah.
My home. So just little things to think about privilege. I'm gonna go to class. So the first sentence, I can be sure that my social class will be an advantage when I seek medical or legal help.
Yeah.
We're just talking about that. I'm fairly certain that I will not have to skip meals because I cannot afford to eat. I want to say privileges, they can also change in time. Like I know when I first did this, I was very different economical status. And so I did skip meals at undergrad and graduate school, and so they can change. So 3, I have a savings account with at least a month's expense in case of emergencies. I didn't know that either until I read this. Okay, in case of a medical emergency, I won't have to decide against visiting a doctor or a hospital due to an economic reasons. I don't have to rely on public transportation. I can afford my own vehicle. My neighborhood is relatively free of obvious drug use, prostitution, and violent crime. Well,
I would say substance use is
yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
and not a class-related issue.
Yeah. Most experts appear, this is what you were talking about. Most experts appearing in mass media seem to be from my social class.
Yep.
This one always strikes me for a lot of reasons, but we'll go back to it. Okay, Ernest, you know how many you have?
33.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go, how many at least have 10? How many at least have 20? How many at least have 30? 40? I think 49 was the max. Who has all 49? You do? Does anyone else? Okay. All right, so citizenship privilege, specifically U.S. citizenship. If I apply for a job, my legal right to work in this country probably will not be questioned. I will never be denied housing in the U.S. due to my citizenship status. If I go into any bank and set up a checking account without fear of discrimination due to my nationality, I can be reasonably sure that if I need legal or medical assistance, my citizenship will not matter. I do not fear that my employer will threaten me with deportation. If I want to, I could travel freely to almost any country and be admitted back into the U.S. If I were a citizen of a crime, I wouldn't think twice about seeking police assistance due to my citizenship status. So if we only had time for 3 of these, actually we may have time for one more. Is there another one that I actually want to pick the race one? This one always strikes me. Of the ones that we read thus far, were any of them kind of like you got stuck on the sentence, or were they clear for you to pick up? Or did you have conflict with any of them? Okay. So the race privilege, mainstream media routinely depict people of my race in a wide range of roles. Children in my racial group do not need to be educated about systemic racism for their daily physical safety. I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me. That's interesting. This one's similar to the medical. Or I can take a job without people thinking I was hired only because of my race. I can do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit to my race. I am never asked to speak for all people in my racial group. I can go shopping without concern that the store employees will monitor me because of my race. So I love this activity for a lot of reasons. One of them mainly being that as much as I've done this workshop, I've never had anyone never have needs. And so we all have privilege, some more than others, some as our statuses change and grow. I also like that it always brings to my attention sometimes the privilege that I do have, especially specifically to ability. I don't often think about that actively, but reading this and being more conscious of that. And I lost my train of thought. The sound is. Lost my train of thought. Are there any questions? It'll come back. How did you guys feel doing this activity? Do you feel guilty about your privilege? Sure. You feel a little guilty? Gratefulness? Or, yeah, y'all tell me how y'all feel. Todd, you stop and kind of go around.
I think I had a chance to see the questions that had sent, so I was like, oh, we're going to be taking a lot of leads here, and I kind of know that, right? And part of the reason they do what they do is like, I need to use that for something positive, right? I have really key places and key things that other people don't do, but use that for something positive.
Yeah. How many did you have? Am I sharing? Okay. So
I've done sentences before, I like it a lot.
Okay, so there's some you didn't take.
Yes, that is true.
How about you?
Yeah, I think I was struck at the economics, or what was it called?
The class.
It's hard to tell, right? You can't always tell.
Yeah.
From the outline necessarily, what class was in, so that was interesting. I didn't look at that before. Yeah.
Exercise makes me always be very grateful. And a good person, so then you see a lot of different kinds of people, you know. I know every day in our office, it's somebody who I always go home and I'm so grateful that I can come into the house of love. Look at what to my best friend and a dog like that. And that's restorative for me. Like I'm able to do that work better tomorrow and maybe like
Yeah, I think it's a good exercise.
Any insights that you gained, maybe?
I think we probably don't think enough about the ability issues.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I figured I'd be taking a lot of beads, but it was interesting to kind of reflect on all the different ways that people can have, you know, Black privilege, not, you know, not just any one, not just race or not just class, but it just, you know, there's broad categories.
Just range.
That-
Ernest, what about you? How many did you end up having?
47.
You had 47. Okay.
Yeah.
How many did you have, Ernest?
I had 33.
Okay.
So I didn't take any from the race.
Yeah.
At all. But there was one that was really close. I think the one that I asked you to continue with, to add into 3. That we
Yeah,
looked at,
the ability.
the ability one, that was one that was very close to, as far as for me, as far as it being identified as, you know, you must be a basketball player. I don't have to be a basketball player because I'm 6'5". I don't have to be a basketball player because I'm 6'5", but I did. So, you know, it kind of be identified as those type of things. So, it was definitely a tough, and definitely had to take a moment
Yeah.
on some of those questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
To look, make sure. But it is nice to know that I am blessed in some ways that I can be able to afford to do some things. And
Yeah.
what have you, so.
I think the amount of times I do this, I think race is the one I often don't take in also. So it's interesting. Lindell?
So I think for me, most of it is, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to see all that privilege that I have and know that it's not shared equitably. But the other thing I notice is I always want to like emphasize that it's all unearned. Like none of that has anything to do with anything that I did myself.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important.
Yeah. And the same way like Ernest, like we also didn't earn the right to be treated this
Exactly.
way.
Right.
Right. And
Absolutely.
there's nothing you can like, we are doing the work to change that. But that is often like frustrating. Wolfgang.
I felt really grateful that with the sexual orientation one, like I could take some beads. It was like I can marry who I want. The last time I took this, probably the exercise like this was in high school, and I couldn't say that then. So even though I think like maybe values are changing and it's not like there yet, but like legal protections are, and that's powerful. And I was just kind of full circle to see that.
When I did this at a not said organization, that one was really contentious. And I had to be challenged my own like biases. I always knew when I married, I would take my husband's last name. It was like I didn't think like it's not hyphenated. He's taking my name, or like I understand that there's freedom to choose whatever you'd like to do. And I remember just saying like, yeah, like I would totally take my husband's last name. I didn't like think about it. And like that assumption of my own beliefs, I didn't realize was not everyone else's, and how to be open to that. That may not look like what I'm saying it may look like. So I'm glad that, like, like you were saying, the systems are changing. That's the thing about privilege is that it can change, or systems can change, and then it changes all of this for all of us.
Yeah, interesting. It made me think about, and Jessica, I think you mentioned this as well, like things that have changed in my life. So I would have answered those differently as a kid
Yeah.
than I would now, in terms of the circumstances growing up. It also makes me realize the religious one was interesting because I was raised Methodist. I do not go to church, nor do I practice, but I can. So if I'm in a group of people who might hold that against me, it's also, I mean, I'm not sure but I have the privilege of being able to say, oh, I was raised Methodist, even though, like, and I don't have to go into the conversation. And so it's interesting, like, what are the switches that my privilege also allows me to do, which is interesting. I'd actually not thought about that before. Particularly in religion. And then it also just makes me think, and I know this is a bigger thing, but also, you know, how to encourage people who might not share all of our privileges to also be part of this work as well.
Yeah. So I actually had a recent story. I remember my thought. So what I love about this activity, like I said before, is that we all walk away with privileges. Maybe the lowest I've seen is 10. Someone had 10 beads, but again, they still had beads. And where I live, there's a new mailbox express and like shop, and the owner has changed to a Black female. And she was just explaining to me like what's going on with her. And there was an encounter that she had where someone stepped in and used their privilege to kind of check what was happening in the situation. So sometimes, that's why I really wanted us to do bystander training. It didn't work out, but I want to do this activity not to make you guys feel guilty, but to feel empowered. Like, hey, I may have all religion privileges. How can I make awareness at my job to make this better? Or I have all class privileges. I remember in our AL, actually, I did this activity, and there was someone who shared that at the bank, the same bank that they went to, like another person of a different race went to go cash a check, and they wouldn't do it, but they would cash his check, no questions asked. And he I don't want to say threatened them. They were like, either you're going to cash this person's check, or I'm withdrawing my services from this place. So it's not like, it wasn't a grand, like it wasn't grand, maybe big and hit social media and all of that, but like it still was making a stance and wanting to make it better. And so I wanted to be uplifting. I wanted to be encouraging. I also wanted to bring awareness to the privileges that we may have and don't think twice of. Like I said, I'm always struck by the ability one. And even now, I have a son who has a disability. So I think about how he does need accommodations. And so how he would answer this in reference to how I even answered it. So I think about it differently. So just wanted to be encouraging. I like that it's beads and we're doing jewelry to wear it as pride. So however you guys want to have this displayed in cars, vehicles, or in your home, to be able to share this story with other people. And also like to kind of do a call to act, that if there are places within your job, within your community, within even your family spaces where you can exert or use your privilege to good, as Todd was saying, try to exercise that. And that's what initially I wanted to do with the bystander training, especially when it relates to heavy topics that we talk about related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. One thing about that bystander training, which like it originated because literally someone's being like attacked very violently in the street and no one responded. It like, to me, blows my mind, but also like there's people going to shop. People are probably thinking like someone's also called. And so I do encourage you, I'll send out information from Just Be. They do have free online services. I'd encourage you to participate in one this year as being on the Human Rights Commission. I've done them. I know Lindell has participated before. They're really encouraging. They really help put into action like how you can actually intervene in positive light. So there's some related to like xenophobia, some related to in the workplace. So we weren't able to hire them on, but that is, I wanted to just tie to that to kind of challenge our commission. Sometime throughout this year, if you can just do one of those training, and I'll send out a link. It's free. They have different times throughout the year to participate. Cool. Any questions before I wrap this up?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, good. All right, Todd, I'll turn it over to you for the annual report. And thank y'all for the willingness to participate in this and share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, let me pull this up. I realize part of being in a different space is like, how do we do this whole strategic planning thing in an effective way, right? Because last two times maybe we did this?
It was virtual.
Totally online.
Yes,
Yes, it's great to be.
I didn't
Bring
forget
in
that.
the- okay.
It's kind of, you know, and then we choose locations kind of abruptly and all those things. So what I've got here in your agenda packet, which I also sent to you the other way, because like so many things are happening right now. But there's a 10-page bit in there, and that's a lot of pages. I recognize that. But what it is, it's kind of a summary of, remember how many folks have computers when you see this, but I wanted to give you something, and whether we delve deep into it tonight or it's a tool for a future time, I want to give you something that, one, gives you a framework to think about your work, right, based on a document that guides everything, which is our human rights ordinance, right? Because it can be a dense document. Like, I look at it all the time, so I know what everything is in there, but I don't really expect people to look at it every day, like we have to look at it on a daily basis. But to help you call out, like, these are the sections that really apply to the commission work. To say, what have you done over the last year, right, 2022, that aligns with what those goals are and how, as are outlined in the ordinance? And what can you glean from that to plan for what you want to do in 2022? That's really what this dense document is about, right? And it doesn't have all this stuff on the Office of Human Rights and all the service data and all that stuff, because that'll be in our annual report, and which I was initially going to drop in here, and then that document's become very big and complex, and I still want to refine it before sharing it publicly. But this piece, I did the commission's part of the annual report first, and what you see here is what's also in the hearing.
Before you get into it, I'm just trying to get on Wi-Fi, are we city guests?
City guests.
So you guys should do.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So I guess my question to you all is, what would be useful with this regard? Do you want to go through and talk about how the ordinance is structured and how you can use that to structure your work going forward? And I realize that's going to be a hard thing. You can't all see this document, and we could talk through it. It's going to be real tedious. And we can save that for a future minute. Or if what's also looking forward, like if we read to you the 6 sections that come out of the ordinance and tell us what we're supposed to do, and give you the key takeaways on each of those sections related to the work we did last week. Because that might give you some, at least, sense of like, how are we doing in this? If that's like,
Yes.
The latter.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
And again,
What are they doing at Sarah?
playing
My best
basketball.
ball.
Okay, I was like,
No, they're playing,
It's
they're playing volleyball.
It's volleyball.
okay, it's hard to hear you.
Yeah, basketball would be a
Yeah.
lot more.
It's volleyball.
I was thinking it was.
It's men's.
It's on, but I don't know. Yeah.
It's men's volleyball.
It's fine.
Okay, I'll try to,
Part of it is I didn't know what they're doing, so it's
yeah,
just like.
it's distracting me every time. Like I say, we're
Men's volleyball.
There's also a little white noise somewhere behind this. Yeah.
Air conditioning heater.
So let's just start off by saying, again, I'm going to go through basically the items that are from section 2-434 in the ordinance, okay? So that's one piece of it. Oh, wow. Okay. Would that be helpful? Oh, my goodness. Now I'm overly loud.
No.
Okay, so those are 6 sections in the ordinance. We've seen them before. We'll go over them. But I also want to call to the fact that in 2022 at your retreat, you identified 4 key areas that you wanted to try to amplify through your work, right? Which was housing equity through doing some assessment, right? We talked about that, number 1. Number 2, you wanted to focus on more community engagement. How do we work with the public and bring them into our conversation and work? Number 3, you wanted to look at the equity within city government, which
which is a direct duty for you all to look at city policy and provide guidance. And then third, we wanted to talk about how do we expand the capacity of the commission and the office. And that was largely around making sure we had adequate staffing, but also thinking about what are we doing in terms of entering these federal work shares, right? So those are the 4 focus areas you decided last year at your retreat. And let's talk a little bit about how those fit into these different sections. So section 2-433A, which says the commission will assist individuals who believe they are the victim of an act of unlawful discrimination within the city. Now, that's the one that we least touch on as a commission, right? And that is because of things we do to address discrimination complaints get resolved through mediation, right? That is usually how these things go, or some other informal means resolves it and the person withdraws the complaint. We have yet to get to a place where we've rendered a finding where it was of no reasonable cause and somebody appealed. I think that happened once in the history of the commission. And we have yet to render a finding of reasonable cause and then they come to you for a public hearing. So that has not happened. We talked about it at one point, and I think we were like, we better prepare for this, because that's one thing to think about is if we ever do have a public hearing, that's a big deal, and we want to be ready for how that goes down, right? One thing I'm thinking about, put this in your thinking cap, is maybe we should look for a way to get a little bit of, we talked to, I think, Fairfax, or was not Fairfax, it was Prince William County. We talked to some commissioners in Prince William just to get a sense of like, how do you guys do this? And they just gave a document and they said, we don't do it much. But I think that it would still be valuable, and I know the PCOB has done this, to do like a moot hearing at some point, or have someone guide us through one, like here's what it would look like, kind of a role play. Something to think about. If we wanted to organize something like that, I'd be happy to work with you to figure that out. But for now, it hasn't been a priority.
Do we have someone that can walk us through that?
I think we could find someone. I would definitely like not say that I feel like I'm an expert at all. I would be a learner as well with you, and I think we would need to learn together. So I think someone could be found for sure, and potentially I could even talk with the folks that we contract with for mediation, because I think they do some facilitation of hearings and things like that. So something to think about. Jump to the next section, 2-433B, which says collaborate with the public and private sectors for the purpose of providing awareness, education, and guidance on methods to prevent and eliminate discrimination citywide. So some of the key actions and takeaways that you all did in 2022 is that you engaged in 4 specific actions, and this is pulled from your minutes as well as the letters and other things that you did. 4 specific actions that related to public awareness, education, and guidance, including 1 community event, 1 public discussion, and 2 public polls. I know that there's a further in there, which doesn't make any sense. I think it's a typo, so ignore that. And so if you guys recall, we did host a couple of public polls. I think they were virtual. I don't think we've done an in-person. Obviously the polls were virtual, but public discussions in 2022, I don't think we had any in-person ones, right? I think we did all those online. And then we had an event, a public community event, which we were tabling, which I think a commissioner also came to. I think Jeanette, I think you joined us at one of those community events at West Haven Day, I believe. So we did a few things in terms of furthering this particular part of the ordinance, but also that focus area that you had in your retreat priorities.
So there was only one table, one community event?
At which commissioners participated in. For the Office of Human Rights, there were a lot of them, but from a commission standpoint, I think we tried to get a schedule together, and I think it was just hard. Like, frankly, y'all are like full-time employees somewhere else, right? Like, that is a tough thing to reconcile with these schedules that we have for outreach. So it's something to think about. How can we, and I know you talked about that in Community Engagement Committee, how can we create other possibilities for commissioners to engage with the public? And so it's another thing to think about if that's one of your priorities this year. Oh wow, so much better with glasses. I was like looking at this like so fuzzy. Section 2-433C is the next section, And that says, identify and review policies and practices of the city of Charlottesville and its boards and commissions and other public agencies within the city and advise those bodies on issues related to human rights. So the key actions and takeaways here were, this was kind of your big area. You engaged in 6 actions aligned with this section of the ordinance. And this is related to city policies, including 2 council recommendations, 2 resolutions that you passed, and then you had 2 public discussions around city policy. And so, again, if you look at the table that's below this, it talks about all the things specifically that you did and what those were. But that seemed to be a strong suit for you in terms of trying to address policy issues and bring the public awareness up on those things. So next thing. So this is the one about the federal work share. So section 2-433D, in summary, seek work share agreements with the EEOC and HUD to enter into federal work shares with the federal government, right? I won't read the whole thing because it's kind of clunky, but this is the FEPA and the FAP thing that we've talked about, Fair Employment Practices Agency, and then Fair Housing Assistance Program. So the big one that we did last year was we adopted amendments to the Charlottesville Human Rights Ordinance for recommendation to council. Ultimately, council adopted those amendments on the 21st of November last year, right? So that's a big step forward in that, because that's the first step for us to be even able to qualify for this federal work share with HUD. That is, I think we're still on hold working through that rather than going into the FEPA work share, because that's another whole complex thing. Just to give you an update on that, we did get some feedback from HUD because I sent the approved ordinance off. He gave me some feedback. He's like, you may want to amend some more things, which was a little bit of a bummer. So that means we're going to go through the process again, but not quite as extensively. So that's kind of where your responsibility falls with this 2-433D is approving those amendments, reviewing those amendments, that kind of thing. So that's on the table probably again this year. Not necessarily need to be a focus area, but it's probably something that's going to come up eventually. Here we go. We're almost there. Section 2-433E, make recommendations regarding the city's annual legislative program with an emphasis on enabling legislation that may be needed to implement programs and policies that will address discrimination. So if you recall, you made recommendations to council, and then last year it was related to housing equity, transportation equity, and accessibility, health and food equity, and equity in law enforcement. And the document goes into detail about what were the specifics of those. But again, this is one of those things that while it's not specifically a focus area, it's a role that you have each year, that your focus areas may define what you recommend as legislative priority to council. So what you decide this year to be your priority probably would make your work easier, in fact, if that was also, if you're providing legislative recommendations around the focus area that you chose to put as your priority this year. So I think this is the last one, 2-433F, prepare recommendations to policies and procedures the commission believes are necessary for the performance of the roles, duties, and responsibilities assigned to the commission within this article, and for modifications or operating procedures approved by council. So that's kind of a funny thing. It's sort of an ad hoc thing that you do when you need to, right? In this case, what you did was that you reviewed and amended your own rules and procedures to redefine a quorum, because we got smushed down a little bit when they passed the ordinance last time in 2021, reduced to 9 members. So our old rules and procedures didn't quite apply. So that was a good thing. So that means you could still get work done as your numbers got smaller. And then you also, again, adopted changes to the human rights ordinance that not only did substantial equivalence for our FAP process, but you also changed it to just refine our processes generally. So I just saw your email, by the way. Just acknowledging you there. That's good. So those are the 6 main areas of the ordinance that you have to focus on, right? Because it's mandated by ordinance. So what I say to you, see those, look at what you've done, then also think about what is your priority this year and how do you overlay it onto those responsibilities that you have under the ordinance. And I think that will help guide what you do throughout the year. the last little bits in here, I added some supplemental information to tell you about kind of the key stats that came out of the Office of Human Rights work. So that's primarily going to be around the individual service. I haven't put the outreach stats in there yet, but those are also going to be in this key takeaways when you see it in the annual report. That's just something to digest, to keep in mind. If we have questions or want to talk about that more deeply, we can. And then the last two little things I added on there were what I provide to new commissioners now about what's the level of commitment it takes to be a commissioner. And it's kind of a lot. I mean, it's really like 5 to 8 hours a month if you're really into it to make things work. And that's from answering emails and reading emails to participating in meetings like this one or in committee meetings, drafting letters, drafting other work that you want to present. So I just wanted to put that in there to think about, one, to honor the fact that this isn't easy. This isn't just like, I'll just show up like once a month and the work will happen. No, it does take a lot of time and you guys are putting that time in, but be conscious of that and go, okay, probably in order to get some of these things we want to get done, that's what it's going to take. So sort of embody that as you're going forward so that you know what you're getting into. And then last, just put out kind of an annual calendar template, right? This is subject to feedback and change, but a way based on what you've done in the past and also the things that we have to do, like elections and submitting legislative recommendations, putting that all into an annual calendar so we can say, how do we schedule each month so that we make sure that by the end of the year we've gotten through what we need to get through to fulfill our obligations under the ordinance. Again, tweak this as you see fit. I was almost tempted to say, let me take that calendar and lay it next to how we did things last year just to see how much it lines up and what we should tweak. I didn't do that, but that's another activity we could do in the future. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have questions,
I do have a question.
please.
So where is the language? Can you remind us what the language is that the city council added about our obligation to create a report or project?
Yeah.
I want to remember what they have legislatively required that we do.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, let me say this to you, and I think if you are fulfilling those 6 obligations under A through F, and you identify a priority area to focus on, you're going to kind of meet that requirement. But where that is I'm going to scroll back up here. So I didn't identify that as like it's in the duties and responsibilities piece. So I just read the roles to you. The duties and responsibilities are kind of weird because they kind of fit within the roles, but they're in a separate section. And one thing, if we're going to amend the ordinance again for the FAP, I would love to reorganize what you guys have to do in terms of the commission, because right now it's kind of clunky. You've got this like 6 things and some other things that kind of go with the 6 things, but they're over here. And that kind of doesn't make sense to me. So I think that's an opportunity for you to think about that. But it is in, so those the 2 areas you have. There's duties and responsibilities. I think it's community dialogue and engagement. And that's section 2-434. And then section 2-435 is duties and responsibilities, systemic issues. And the project thing is C under 2-435. But it's kind of vague. And I think it's kind of intended to be so that there's some flexibility in what you term a project, right? It's not like you have to go out and do like a research thing and then publish a paper about it. Like, it's not so much about that. It's like, again, choose an area to focus on and do some work around it and then get that out. Create a product an end result that you can then ultimately, I would say, recommend to council, because it's ultimately your power, is to influence what council thinks. Does that answer your question, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, did I miss, you said you included the annual report overview. What page is that on?
Tell me again what you
page
mean.
is that on? Because I'm just seeing key action and takeaways is what you just said, and then the summary of our focus.
You didn't include it.
Oh.
I thought you did not include the annual.
The full annual report?
No, you said you have, on here you have the overview. Are you just telling us it verbally?
Which part are you talking about? I just want to make sure.
Annual review,
Oh, are you talking about on the agenda?
yes.
Yeah. So this is what I'm presenting to you here and in the agenda packet is kind of in lieu of our full annual report because that thing's not quite ready for prime time. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure if anything I gave you tonight, it was mostly focused on commission work rather than on Office of Human Rights work. And the full annual report, about 60 to 70% of that is human rights reporting stuff because that's where all the stats come from.
I want to thank you for this summary. It's done in a way that's very digestible.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I was a little concerned that it might not be. So
And I think it's a template that we can use to keep track of our
Yes.
of our work in the future. Like each committee can use, this to do that.
yeah, that would be truly helpful. So understand that all this stuff comes from, we keep a big master spreadsheet of all the things that you're working on so that we can then tally them and sort them in different ways. And so credit to Jenny, one of our interns who I think you've met a few times. So when she was here for a winter break, actually, I had her go through a lot of your minutes and look at the letters and sort of make sure that the catalog of all the things that you did was up to date. So that's what I've been trying to do to try to wrap my head around what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I want to echo what everyone said. It makes it clear, like, okay, we're strong in these areas. Some sections we are not, or haven't, done something specific. I really like the way it's laid out. I mean, I've been on this commission for 3 years. It's the first time I've seen it in this way. And so I find it really helpful. And also, like, kudos to our commission for the work that we do.
Yeah.
In our independent time. Was there anything else you had to share before we go into strategic planning?
Nothing else. And again, like if there's anything in here that you want me to explain further, just let me know at any point now or afterward, and expect the full annual report with all the information to be presented to you probably at the April meeting. I'm hoping we don't have to present it to council until June, but I just want to be way ahead of the game because we got plenty of other things to do.
This may be jumping the gun. Can I ask a question? If it's useful, it would be helpful to have this in a Word form so that we can update it for, this year.
Yes.
And keep track of it. And maybe even add the project in there and different.
Let's talk about that. I think what might also be helpful is now that we're all, I know Suzanne, we're still working out some IT.
No, I'm on.
You're on? Okay.
Yeah.
We had an email. I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay.
But I think we have some connectivity things we're going to work out. But now that we're all on city emails, we could actually give you access to the spreadsheet that we update, and you can just drop it right in if you want, if that's of interest to you. Because it's got a lot of like pre-fillable stuff, like drop menus and stuff, so you don't have to type a lot of stuff out. So, or if there's another way you want to do it, let me know. We can figure it out.
But wouldn't that give us the ability to mess up your spreadsheet?
Yes.
That's what I was I would be very reluctant to give me that power.
That's the beauty of OneDrive is that there's always version histories. We can always go back. But yeah, we can talk about ways that if you want to actively update stuff for us, that would be amazing. That would be super helpful.
So any more questions for Todd?
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you all for the work.
Thank you, Todd. Victoria, for all of this work that you do. So how we were initially planning to do this was you guys were gonna send me your focuses prior. And maybe I had missed it in my email, but I ain't getting nothing from nobody. But I also didn't have a chance to email anyone. You send me? Yeah. I think Wolfgang's online sent me something. So what I'd like to do is give us maybe 5 minutes to think of focuses in lieu of everything that Todd just shared with us. I want to give like 5 minutes just thinking and no one kind of like talking and then kind of moving forward with what we think our focuses should be this year.
Ask a clarifying question?
Yes, of course.
So in looking at the 2022 areas that you all identified, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but also thinking about like, was this the right number? Right? Like, as I start to think about what is this too many? Is this the right number? Do we want more, or should we just brainstorm and then go from there?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of jumping the gun, but I could answer.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So the fourth goal, really, as soon as like we said it, like the next few weeks, it was pretty much solved because
Okay.
Todd got approved for hiring his staff.
Okay.
Members, that was like a main part of that. And then the rest just didn't gain enough traction, though the like committees were meeting, so I don't know if it's not too much or just like a lot was happening with us like collectively and individually that just slowed that momentum. But I would like to, for this year, maybe focus on just two things.
Okay.
Because it really spread us thin. And the two that were really popular that at least got semi-consistent attendance and when we had ad hoc meetings was the housing equity assessment and the community engagement. So not to throw out like the baby with the bathwater, I think those were two strong ones. And clearly, in all of our conversations, housing continues to be at the very top. So I'm willing to narrow it down and per Todd's like advice. Like there's a lot that we want to do. We want to make really, really great impact, but more concentrated effort would be better. So I would say like of all four that we determined, kind of one got immediately taken care of, so to speak, and then equity and city government review didn't build as much momentum as we were hoping.
Thank you.
But this was also with our like town hall meetings that we had as we were gathering like information to put things together. And so I think that we have, at least collectively, I hope if we have like 5 minutes to kind of think about it, that we can come to a kind of decision, but we can talk about it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, context is really important.
I would also suggest, like, I really like the housing stuff, but I think having as a goal housing equity is too big and that we should identify what we're going to do.
Yes.
I think that what it meant is that we could just like flip from thing to thing because everything's, housing. So I think it'd be really useful to come out with like, here are the two things we want to.
Yeah.
And that's the random number, that may be the wrong number.
Yeah,
but-
so sorry, I didn't go into like what the strategy was, but yes, I wanted to identify at least two things. And then today, what happened last time was our meeting got taken up, it was great. And we were like, oh, we're gonna have our committee, our ad hoc committee meetings, and then we'll determine what we want to do and focus on. And that kind of didn't happen. So if we do narrow down to one or two, yes, I'd like to walk away with today, like, hey, this is the specific thing we're gonna focus on. Like, for example, I mean, we kind of did it in the community engagement. We said we're going to at least do like 5 or 6, I forget the number we decided on. We eventually got there, but I would like today to have it really clear. We're doing housing. This is the specific thing we're doing in housing. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know.
Yes.
So we have a little bit more clearer marching orders after we leave today. Does that make sense? So as you're thinking in these 5 minutes, I hope that's enough time. Think about the topics that you'd like us to focus on, and then think about that in the two categories. What do we know? What information do we still need to know? We maybe don't have to, like, we just maybe need to know some statistic, for example. Maybe Wolfgang, it's a matter of like researching it. Or if it's a matter of we have to talk to somebody, like we don't have to get that far and when we come back in 5 minutes, but enough of like, here's what I think we should focus on. And then with the category of what do we need to know? What do we know? Does that make sense? 5 minutes enough time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so at 7:10, we'll kind of come back. So we're not going anywhere. People have to use the bathroom. Go break and use the bathroom. And Wolfgang, I'll be drinking out. Sorry.
I said on the 7th. More like, process oriented.
With the VAHRC. I attended as many as you did once you told me.
The VAHR?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll look at my calendar and I can figure it out. I feel like we were both at all of the ones.
maybe one I couldn't attend. I
There-
think I was at.
Yeah.
all.
I really feel like you were, there might have been a few, yeah.
I don't think it was
I'll look at the
My
calendar.
recall told me there was only 2 meetings, that could be wrong, but there were activities.
That might be right. Yeah. We're just going to add that to like kind of our list of things that we did in 2022. Yeah. Keep forgetting what year we're in. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't realize that the, plain language hadn't been signed since.
Yeah, because you know what happens, and we did this, I think we've done this before, I think this happened to Mary too, is that when we're in the transition from like December to January and then we get distracted, we pass something right at the end of the year and then we just go to the next meeting, we do elections and then we just like move on and it's like, oh, we forgot to like sign the thing that we passed. It just happens because it's end of the year scramble, but no problem. Like, and it's not one, it's one of the resolutions that's just the plain language version of the other, which I think also gets confusing sometimes is like, oh, didn't we sign that one? No, we signed the original, but not the other. But anyway, it's much to juggle. And I did bring a paper copy, but I saw your email, so.
They're really. Sounds like my house. Sounds like my kids are.
I figured we would talk about that at a different time. I do have the rules and procedures here. I know we're going to go around that. Maybe we could, that could be like a one-off ad hoc committee of,
He wants to.
I think you two had talked about that before.
Sure. Okay, all right.
So maybe like a next move would be to just like have a meeting, review the draft document, then get it on the next agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an easy one.
Yeah, you want to set up a time?
I want to set up
I mean, if
time
it's
after
just the
this.
two of us, or?
We could do it at the next scheduled ad hoc time, which is, I'd have to look at the calendar. April, beginning of April. What is the first Thursday of April?
The 6th?
I think so.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, just add it to the sort of the ad hoc,
And it's in the
Committees.
first and 6:30?
beliefs. Yeah, let me look at that one. I think that might be the one where we have another overlap with council.
Yeah, it looks like it's here.
I think it's here. We'll get better at doing it here.
Okay.
David, if you're listening, we're going to be here again. Maybe we'll bring a whiteboard.
I'll be out of town, but I can zoom in.
I think so, yeah. So you'll have,
Can I request to ask permission from
you'll have to
myself
ask
zoom in?
yourself permission, explain why, and then give yourself permission.
You need to write yourself an email.
I think you just did that publicly
There, I'm asking permission to be virtual.
because you will be more than 60 miles from the location of the meeting.
Yes. Do
Do you grant yourself permission?
I grant myself permission.
Excellent. I think this is going to work out well.
Or just the chair, any different since,
I don't know.
okay. So that's me.
All right.
I'll second it.
Perfect.
Add that to- on
Take a
that.
vote.
Yeah, that agenda, sure thing.
All right. Do you mind if we just take a deep breath? Like inhale to the count of 3, exhale to the count of 3. Okay. Thank y'all for supporting me. So I want to honor that Wolfgang did send me ideas. So you mind if I share?
Sure, they're less policy and more just like process.
Okay.
But-
So do you want me to read the second one you just sent me or?
Sure, throw that in there too.
So Wolfgang is suggesting housing, but identifying creative policy solutions to incentivize deeply affordable housing. How about you read it?
Sure. I've got two, trying to narrow down housing into specific things. So the first would be investigating the feasibility of a citywide voucher program under the current flexibility of CSRAP to either supplement or operate separately from the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And then 2, identify creative policy solutions to incentivize deeply affordable housing in the city, investigating things like hotel conversions, rezoning commercial property. Do they have legs? Can we do that? Would that have utility in the city? Those are my things. And then I also thought some things that we've done before that have been really great. We've written more letters. So like, I feel like the bar from my letter writing is so high. It's like, I want every word to be a jewel and I don't write anything. So I just want to write more letters to council just so we're able to communicate what we're thinking of, what we're passionate about, even if the bar is literary value is lower. I think we should have HRC representatives regularly attending the planning commission or like housing, like is the housing advisory committee, does it exist again?
I think it still
It
exists.
still
Yeah,
exists. Okay, I looked and they hadn't met since 2020.
it could be. It could be. I don't know.
They were supposed to meet, I think, last night. Okay. I feel like we should have representatives on relevant other committees. So I'm assuming we're gonna pick housing. We pick housing, let's go on those committees. If we pick a different issue to focus on, let's get those. Well, whatever it is, we should have people attending those meetings. The HRC should support the city through the rezoning process. Yeah, we should write a letter, say this is like values oriented, human rights, this is why we got to do this. And then I also think a discussion about values orientation around housing. Like, do we believe that housing is a human right? Like it's not a protected class, but it intersects with many protected classes.
It is a human
It
right.
intersects with, well, it's not a protected class.
Did you say housing?
Housing.
What sort of-
Housing is a protected activity.
Protected activity.
Yes.
Where is it, like, does the city recognize it as?
It's in our ordinance.
It's in our ordinance.
Yeah.
The
But
UN
no one can
recognizes it as a human right,
experience
like-
discrimination in accessing housing. Right.
What's that?
No one can experience discrimination to a protected identity when accessing housing.
So that's our like ability to
Yeah.
act.
That's our
But
muscle.
our value is housing as
Yes.
a human right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we've explicitly said that as a group. And I mean, I'm agreeing with you in this
I
moment.
thought, I mean, okay.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you when I say like housing is a human right, but I think at having a discussion of like, are we all coming from that same page? Because we're tackling this work together might have merit. I don't think we have to do that in this very moment, but it may help us if we're able to articulate why housing is important to the work that we're doing.
Okay.
We may already be on the same page, but I don't think we've.
I think we could do that in 30 seconds.
Who thinks housing is a human right?
Yeah, with the
Martha's
graphic
rules.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Housing is a human right. I see
Yeah.
people- is everyone nodding?
Ernest does
Yes.
not believe that housing is human right.
Yes, we agree.
Okay.
And then Linda can do a graphic in plain language.
That's all I've got.
I believe in us owning this together, so like everyone to go around the table and we give thoughts, and I'm gonna do my best to take notes. But I heard from you housing, and you have specific areas within housing.
Can I,
Yes.
I think that's great. When you talked about the voucher program at the beginning though,
Yep.
I have an immediate like thought about that,
Okay.
which is that we already have a problem with vouchers because there's no housing. Right? And so increasing the voucher is not going to increase
The supply.
access to housing because there's nowhere to spend the
Use
vouchers.
the voucher.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea, but I think our energy probably needs to go toward where is the housing. Does that make sense?
There we go. As
Yes.
the newbie. Oh,
Yeah.
This should be
Oh, and
fun.
I wanted to say, because you weren't here, but it struck me when Wolfgang said it, so I want to say this again, because I agree that we should be in better, leverage our ability to have city council's ear. And so we talked to Councilor Payne, Ernest and I, long time ago. I feel like it was maybe around this time. But he gave great advice. So in that, with city council, of course, a lot is coming at them. But if there's something specific, which we will again, what we were hoping last year was we're gonna have these focuses, it's gonna be really clear. We're gonna message to the council, we're gonna get them to champion this idea. And it kind of didn't get to that point where we got counselors to say, we're gonna have you champion this idea. But I would love to still, I haven't talked to Councilor Payne since then, but I'd love to still honor that. I don't think he's gonna take his word back in that. So that's the other part of this, is as we're identifying focuses, what we know, what we don't know in our charge, then the next would be to be more consistent. And Councilor Payne said, we don't mind if you keep coming to us with the same thing. But as long as it's very clear, like what the issue is, what we've done, what we're recommending, they're happy to champion an idea on our behalf. And again, that is our role as sorry, not as city council, but as Human Rights Commission, is to give guidance to city council on things that are happening. So just wanted to say like that in context to where things will kind of go next, is that we've identified, we've done our homework, we've done our due diligence, and we're gonna, like, me or Ernest or someone will keep going to city council meetings, which I haven't been to one yet in my role. So,
Okay.
sorry, just wanted to add the context.
So caveat, mine might be the most vague of anybody's. We'll see.
That's okay.
I think I come at this with the lens, and I've heard you all talk about this before, is, what are the greatest needs that we can actually have a role in? And I think what I also don't know is, and I think I heard you all talk about this at the first meeting that I attended, was there are so many different things around housing. And I don't, and hopefully others around this table have a better understanding, but I don't know what is happening and not happening, et cetera. And ergo, what does that mean for our involvement? Like, is there a place or certain places where we can really engage? So I would say housing, absolutely. And then I started to go down the road of, well, is it, as we think about like certain places closing in terms of for homeless folks, but like, I just don't even know where to go. So housing, yes. I mean, the community engagement, I don't know how you all, so housing, period, end of sentence, but even in terms of the community engagement, I'm not sure what that looked like in terms of going into neighborhoods where there's the highest need and really doing the community engagement. It looks like maybe you did some of that. Yeah. So, and then the city government, I'll just say, like, I think that equity, like the equity stuff that you all have that didn't really get off the ground, which makes a ton of sense, but it really does feel like it could have a impressive long-term impact on the city if there were truly equitable policies, et cetera. I just don't know if that's our role, or if somebody else is already doing that. But when I think about equitable priorities, policies, and like being able to like integrate that through an entire city system, that is powerful. But again, I'm not sure if that's us. The last thing that I'll say, okay, as we were talking about like the city council, et cetera, is I don't know. I love that idea of like, where do we connect? And, and I don't know if that is who becomes liaisons to different groups, so that we're really clear that Suzanne is the liaison to X group, and therefore, like, in this meeting, I would come back from whatever meetings I've been attending and report out, so that it allows everybody to have a certain focus area, and it's not just like who can go to this meeting, et cetera.
Okay, so I heard housing, community engagement, equitable priorities, and then maybe morning into liaisons.
Mm-hmm. This is a process piece. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so housing, absolutely. I think that we heard that from the community when we talked to them. And I have some thoughts about that. So I have been doing some web searches and looking at resources in the city and talking.
Can I interrupt you? Could we move the mic over there? Yeah. Can you move that? I can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So,
Can you make it closer, sorry?
I'm afraid I'm going to be booming shortly here. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Too loudly?
No, that's good.
Okay. So housing for sure, because we've heard from the community, we've heard from each other. We know that's a big thing. I've been doing some research, doing some online work in the city, trying to figure out what are the resources out there, who's doing work in this area. There's a lot of people doing work in this area. There are a lot of people who don't have a web presence who are doing work in this area. I feel very much that I don't know who all those people are, right? I just had a conversation with Stephen Johnson from Livable Seaville, who I know that used to know very well, and others may as well. I'd never talked to anybody from Livable Seaville, right? And I had a really good conversation with him about all the different things that go into considering housing in the city. And I heard from him something that I've heard over and over. I've come across it multiple times myself in my lifetime, and that is the Dillon Rule, okay? When we talk about equitable practices, the Dillon Rule gets in the way of things over and over and over and over again. And when we talk about approaching the city and the agenda for the legislative agenda, has the city ever asked for, I mean, specifically, I know it's a big haul, right? But has the city ever said, this rule really makes it hard for us to do our work?
It's not like, oh.
I know, I understand that, but the interpretation of it, yes.
Yeah.
But can we change the way we operate in the state? Make a recommendation that we change the way that we operate so that localities have more maneuverable room when it comes to equitable practices. That's all. I'm just saying that that's something we could think about. Can the city just say that to the legislator, even if they have to say it over and over again, right? Stop getting in our way. Stop getting in our way. Anyway, that was just a thought. But I think that it could be helpful for us to have a survey of resources. Who's doing this work in the city in already? Not just organizations, but maybe even individuals who are doing this, because I know there are a lot. And maybe we could host a summit of some kind where we bring all these people together. Because what I heard at the community engagement group that we did have, there were people present there who had solutions, who had never even talked to each other before. And I was really still struck by that, by how much work is being done in the city and not everybody knows what everybody's doing, right? So that's just my proposal. Maybe we could host a summit where we invite everyone to come, including the public, and just say, let everybody talk about what it is they do and find those connections. And maybe we can be connectors. Maybe that's a role that we can have.
So let's recap so we can get everyone to speak with it beyond at 8, right? Yeah. So I want to respond, but I just want to repeat what I heard you say is, in summary, like making recommendations to city council, recommendations or something to city council about what's going on with the building rule, and then a survey of responses from community members, organizations, individuals, even those that are not maybe having a web presence, that we can gather this information or gather people to come together for a summit. And maybe we can be connectors.
Yep.
Okay. Ernest?
What Lindell said.
Okay. Plus one.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of it's who are the influence or the player, who are the people or the organizations that are doing the work that we need to support in doing that work, as well as whatever city council is, wherever they're putting money, funding behind as far as affordable housing, that they do that plus, and hold to their hold them to the word that they're going to fund said things. Because I always feel that there are times we have surplus of money here, and it could very well be spent with affordable housing and some of that, and it doesn't get spent that way.
So +1 to Lindell, we're
Uh-huh.
adding this component of holding city council accountable when related to funding.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely another +1 to Lindell, and I. Oh, okay. So yeah, I agree with Lindell, and I glad that you emailed earlier about being with Livable Seaville, because that kind of prompted me to sort of think that we're in a position where we can engage with these local groups and bring up policy recommendations and things that we can specifically push to city council to follow up on these things that community groups are pushing for. And there are things like Dillon Rule is kind of a state level bigger thing, but there are local things that city council can do that I think is worth pushing on, like the zoning rewrite, making sure that there's the density for being able to build enough, and the density bonuses and things like that help towards affordability, that council does have control over, and the planning commission does have control over, that we're able to kind of take these recommendations from the community and push it through our sort of official place and be that voice directly to city council.
Okay, so I had an emphasis with recommendation policies and pushing city council on the top with the zoning rewriting and just holding city, really just pushing policies towards city council.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're thinking about our priorities for this year, we really have to focus on the zoning rewrite, which embeds a lot of, I mean, it's housing, but it's also accessibility. It's transit issues, right? Like a lot of things become connected to that, and there are groups working on it, and we could be just amplifying and pushing city council to make sure they do, because there are very loud and very well organized voices on the other side that make arguments that sound persuasive but are not based in truth, right? So they co-opt the language of equity.
So I heard you say housing, specifically zoning rewrite, because that addresses issues of housing accessibility, transit issues, and then amplifying those that are doing that effort and pushing city council. Pushing city council is a ringing thing. I'll just add mine. I really like the momentum that we built specifically with community engagement. So even if what we focus on in community engagements is hosting more town halls, hosting a summit, participating in more events, because I've enjoyed the events that I've participated in communities that really need our presence and our ear. I think it's still worthwhile. Something we've said a lot, especially coming out of COVID, is that we want those that maybe don't have access to come to join our commission meetings, that we can meet them where they are. So I don't want to lose that. Even though I was championing this before, I just don't want to lose that momentum. I think it's a lot of great work that we did, and just want to, in agreement with everything said about housing, but just want to make sure that I'd like to continue with our community engagement.
Did you want to go? Yes, thank you. So my comments resonate with what other folks have said. I think sticking with the same priorities around housing and community engagement connected to that, as well as making legislative recommendations. I think the recommendations that we make can be leveraged, should be focused on, and can be leveraged by our two kind of focal points, which are which I said already, having that particular voice and relationship with council to amplify messages, and then also focusing on the human rights aspect. So it's about vouchers, really focusing on vouchers that are being denied because of disability or race, or, really remembering, even though the issue is much bigger, our particular focus on the human rights aspect of it. Community engagement, I think, I maybe comment on this. I really like the idea of the town halls or some kind of summit. I feel like going to the events, I felt like I was extra. So if we could go and take the place of, and, provide support for Todd and Victoria, that would be great. But I felt like it wasn't really a good use of time to be at those events when they both were there as well. And also enough people are coming into the office, it's like already kind of overwhelmed. So having community engagement around particular issues. I agree with what you were saying about the letters and all of that in terms of using our leverage point to amplify certain things. And the idea about being on particular committees, I appreciate that, and especially Catherine's comment about like what is most urgent right now in the city around zoning.
Housing recommendations, again, voice, still like amplifying voice to city council, keeping community engagement, but specifically to town halls, summits, unless like Todd and Victoria can't be at the event. And then if we do have community engagement, it'll be around the issues that we've got.
Yep. Do you want to say something? No, you can go.
Thank you. I just wanted to say briefly on the topic of community engagement, something that I was thinking about after having the opportunity to sit in with Lindell on the meeting with Livable Seville, which was super enlightening, and thank you so much for the invitation, is that when it comes to community engagement, I know that last year we talked about if I'm going to an event, I can share that with you all. A lot of times it may happen at times where it's just not convenient for other people to participate when they have other engagements, and I don't ever want somebody to feel like their work for the commission has to like make them move their lives around in a way that's not convenient for them. But one thing that I've been thinking, maybe like connections to other service providers or things like that as a human rights commission to kind of learn about the work that others are doing and how to amplify it, that also kind of counts as community engagement, because you're kind of reaching, even if you're indirectly reaching, people who are working with people who we may not otherwise have access to. And something that I've been thinking about for the next year is maybe if there's people that you all want to speak to and I can help facilitate that in any way, or if we can maybe work together on like sharing knowledge or kind of opportunities like that. Maybe that could be a way that we approach community engagement in the next year as well, that doesn't put the pressure on you all to be available on like a Saturday or on a 6 p.m. downtown for something or something like that. Like we can maybe work together to share events like that as well, and I can do my part to promote that.
Sharing knowledge sharing.
Or like setting up, if you're like, I want to talk to a person like this and I can help you or something like that, and following up and things like that, that might be a way.
Okay, so I'm very loud. Okay, I think we should focus on housing, and I think we should focus on the zoning rewrite because it's important and it's happening now, and we have a human rights like angle to bring to it. But I also think we should think about the way that we like are sending messages, because I know I went to city council a bunch of times and I asked for things, and then they didn't do them, and then we moved on to something else. And I just feel like that should not be our approach. Like if we're going to take something, then we should be going back and saying like, why the hell did you not actually fund the thing you said you were going to fund when you said you were going to fund lawyers for people in eviction cases? Because you said you were going to fund that, and then you funded this tiny little portion of it and you never reported back. And that may not be our issue now. Like we may, but like if we're identifying something to city council, like we should be committed to it for a longer period of time. And I'd also like us to see, I'd like to see us craft legislative priorities much, much earlier in the year. They never do anything. I mean, like, it's not like they've taken any of our recommendations and said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's like push our delegate to do this, right? Like what's the point of making these recommendations if we just go and say them and they don't do them? So trying to like really go deep on one or two things and like have a lot of follow-up. So, because they're not going to do what we suggest on the first ask. The history of my time here is that they haven't done a single thing, on the first ask. And so I just love to see us sort of go in with that kind of commitment that we're picking this thing and we're going to stick with it for a good while and follow up.
Okay, so I repeat what you said, housing, zoning, rewrite support, and think about the messages that we're sending out, and then holding city council accountable in the long term with constant follow-up.
Yep.
And crafting legislative ideas earlier. Todd, relax.
Okay, I'll just speak.
Briefly, first of all, the Housing Advisory Committee does meet, and thanks to you, Courtney Brown, one of our new coworkers in Home to Hope, for sending me a Teams message and saying, actually, HAC just met yesterday, because she attended that meeting. But what's confusing about it is when you search on the calendar, they label it differently, like on the calendar, like every time. So you have to search in different ways. It's HAC, or Housing Advisory, or Housing Zoning Subcommittee. But it does look like they're meeting regularly. I think there was a little bit of gap there, but that's encouraging. That means there's an opportunity. The next one is actually March 21st. That's right. We're on the 16th. And it's at noon, which is maybe a challenging time for people to meet, but that's the zoning subcommittee meeting. So just what you're talking about. So there's an opportunity right there. Just try to say, I don't want to steer your ideas here at all, but all the things that you're talking about, we probably have some knowledge dump that we can do for you to say, like, here's what we know about vouchers. Here's what we can tell you about CISRA. Here's what we can tell you about the experience of people that we've worked with in what have you, the various issues that you're talking about. So keep that in mind, much as Victoria was saying, like, reach out to us to say, hey, we're about to embark on X thing. Do you know people that do that? Much like the spreadsheet, you start the spreadsheet of people, the experts that you could talk to. Same idea. Want us to help facilitate that connection, please do. Or if there's a topic that you want to know what we know about, ask us, because we may have some things to share. So.
So I think I'm gonna close this out real quick. Okay, so yeah, can y'all hear me?
You want this one?
What is this one actually?
That's amplified.
This is the amplified. Testing? Yes. Yes.
So when we're talking about housing, I think one thing I would want to see us focus on specifically is the loss of homeownership of by Black owners of housing. I think that what I would like for us to explicitly mention, if this is something we all agree on, is that when we talk about housing, one of the things I think is really important are the kinds of things that have led to the loss of homeownership by Black residents of Charlottesville. I think that's, I just want to say, that's something I think is really important when it comes to equity. And I just want to add that as an explicit statement. That's all.
Okay, so my brain heard everything that you guys said. I'm gonna come to a conclusion, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Definitely it's housing. And if we are gonna do community engagement, it'll be related to housing, potentially. Is anyone not in agreement with us focusing just on housing this year? So we'd have one focus area, and then we would get really clear about what in housing we're gonna do. But are we agreeing that the overall topic is housing?
Thumbs up.
Here, I'm just thinking there might be opportunities for, I just need to think about it.
Okay. So the specific, I kind of hear three things related to housing, zoning, I hear two things, sorry. There's three things I want to share. I hear two things specifically for zoning. So zoning, and then what Lindell just said about specifically the acknowledgement of houses lost of owners, Black owners within Charlottesville. Part of the process of this would be, once we're potentially clear about the what we know, what we don't know, who we need to bring together, that once that's clear of our recommendation, again, bringing the voices to the table, and so that we can amplify that either through groups or individuals to bring this consistently before city council and be relentless in that if we have to do it. Lord have mercy, every city council meeting. Whew, okay, but I heard that clearly, like we want to make sure that whatever it is that we're saying, that as we gather information, the to-do will be to meet with city council on a regular basis to push and amplify the areas specifically that we're saying in housing. Does that summarize it enough? Just kind of high overview? Okay.
Just a clarification, because when you're saying focus on housing specifically, are we saying that this is our highest priority, but that we're not excluding other things that may come up? Is that what was concerning you? Right. So I would like to clarify that too. I think we would still work on other things that came up as an emergency or really urgent thing, but that housing is our priority. Right. Okay. That's good.
I agree. Just when we do go to council, just us make sure that we are specific
Yes.
about what we're supporting or what we're saying, and that we're not going against or saying something different than those that have been doing this work and working so hard on trying to get more housing in Charlottesville. That we make sure that we're very specific about championing and supporting what they're doing. Is my concern. And going to the other things, one thing that we have not acknowledged here as a Human Rights Commission is the gun violence that has been happening in Charlottesville. That is definitely an issue that that we need to make sure we acknowledge that it's happening. It is a concern, and any way that we can somehow support anything that may somehow change the tide, help our young folk, help those that are trying to help our young folk, make a difference, that that people will reach out to us, and we will do what we can, and as far as that as well. I think that's something we have not acknowledged, and we need to, because that is a definite concern in our community. And it's probably part of that's housing. And if we had some housing, different things, it might be a little different. So, yep.
So I agree with you, Ernest. I was trying to do high level. We were very aspirational. We have literally 15 minutes to get out of here. There was a community forum with the chief of police. I missed that. But yes, I want to cap it with saying, yes, I want to support and acknowledge. Thank you. I don't have to reiterate, but just seconding to what you're saying. As chair, I am happy to write letters. I know there's a couple of letters that I should have written or kind of like were thought of ideas. I do want to say, like, as much as we're going to focus on housing for this year, if there are things that come up, I just need help. Like, I'm happy to write and sign, but if we could come together and say, hey, we want to do this, but you come with a draft of something, that just helps me personally. I'd love that additional support from you guys. But I do want to at least have some marching orders when we leave here to did you want to say something?
I did, but I'm happy to wait for you to be done.
No,
interrupt you.
No.
Okay. Oh, no, it's not, it's really not that urgent. In fact, now I'm just going to let you.
Is it in line with this though?
It all follows.
Okay. So I do want to leave with some action items. Todd, what's stuck in my mind right now is a comment you made in one of our ad hoc meetings where I was like kind of there and I had to leave abruptly. You had concerns about us being like a connector or gathering people. Is that, do you still have that concern if that's what we want to go in the direction with the housing? Maybe, what was that in reference to?
I'm going to try to, I'm guessing a little bit because maybe that idea that I've heard reiterated around the table a bit, being an amplifier of voices that you want to endorse in council, was that it? And then we can help you talk to different agency directors and other city staff?
Not us necessarily being like a place that like people come to us and then we send them to get. Like you didn't kind of want us to be, you kind of already do that in the office, but you didn't want that to be our focus. I'm remembering that.
Navigation?
Huh?
Navigation?
Yeah, like the navigating part. You didn't want us to focus.
Oh, like focusing on individual services and, okay, I don't know. I don't remember. So I apologize. I just don't remember.
Amplifying within your knowledge of the ordinance, if we're amplifying the voices in the community.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now I
You
think
take-
like this will, I just want to suggest that our current committee system structure is not working and that we should either like create committees that like have enough people to do work or just get rid of them and do the work of the whole commission. Because like, I don't know. I mean, like I've been half-assing attending the committee meeting. So it like, I'm only there half the time, but like there's never more than two of us. And sometimes there's not even that. And then like, what are we going to do? And like, I don't know, there's with the 7-person commission, I don't think that what we're doing is like effective. So I think there are plenty of different ways to fix it. And I don't have a strong feeling one way or another if we should just do that. But I think if we're going to focus on housing, the housing committee should be like more than
It should be strong.
one of us. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was gonna get to, I appreciate you, Mary, always, because you're always the, well, no, I appreciate your bluntness, but you're always a step ahead of where I'm going, but you help move me there. And so I appreciate you. I do, I really do. So that's where I was gonna go to next. I want us to leave with action items today, and we have 10 minutes. And so per what Mary was saying, I think we should keep ad hoc committee, because I think if we do, we're all on ad hoc committee for housing. But I think if we could have some action for our next meeting in April, that's a little clearer. So what I would recommend is who could be a part of that? Like if we're all collectively saying the commission is a part of that, who wants to chair that? I don't want to chair that in this at the same time. I like to participate as much as possible. So I heard we need to gather information. We need to gather the people. So that's one like subtask work. I'm breaking this into like actionable tasks that I see at hand as like next steps. That is a call for us to have some marching orders. So that's one I'm identifying is a task force or a subcommittee of a subcommittee in the housing committee that says we'll focus on how to gather the people and the information to maybe have a summit or kind of next steps. So that's like the people into the room. What do we think of, what do we know about housing, or what do we, sorry, not housing. What do we know about zoning? What do we still need to know about zoning? Do we know answers to that? Do we need to gather that information?
I think it'd be wise if we did.
What'd you say?
I think it'll be wise if we did.
Okay, so there's the like gathering of community members and the peoples that have this amazing knowledge, and they're not just knowledge, but they're doing the work. The other is gathering information around zoning, and now I'm blanking on there was a third thing. Help me out. I think it was something you said, Catherine.
I didn't say anything that anyone else didn't say.
Maybe it was you, Linda.
Question, clarification about the zoning and everything. So, Catherine, you've been telling me this. Do you feel that there is a clear thing that should be happening with the zoning rewrite? Like, does somebody know, is there community agreement on what it should be, and should we just amplify it? That's my question.
Define community. So there, yeah. I'm not sure what you mean by community. There is largely, I believe, I don't know, Andy, if you agree, that agreement on what more equitable zoning would look like, with some areas of disagreement even among people with an interest in housing.
Okay.
But there's some large areas of absolute agreement.
So it sounds to me like you have more expertise in this than I do by far.
I have
What would you-
little expertise. I know who to listen to and to do what they tell me when it happens. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So, and I do want to give time for comments from the public, if there's the public. Okay, so it sounds like community, I'm saying broad players, key stakeholders, that's the word, that's the fancy project management word. Key stakeholders related to the issues of housing, and then like a sub-interest of tapping into Catherine, who do we need to be listening to related to zoning? And then the work Lindell was saying about the loss of ownership for Black owners within Charlottesville. So it's like 3 concerns within housing. Did I summarize that? Did I captured it? And the action, of course, is to make clear, precise recommendations to City Council of what we're doing. That's what we're going to do with this information as we gather. Is it too much?
I'm oversaturated with only 8 minutes left to
Gotcha.
we're doing
Yeah, I
for
feel
the
like
year.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure that hosting a gathering is, if that's what you're saying specifically is, like, I don't know, I think we need to spend more time talking through these.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and whoever's taking notes, because someone's recording notes, those are the 3 things I've identified. We will iron them out more in the ad hoc committee. And before we turn it over to comments from the public, I want to ask who'd like to chair our ad hoc housing committee. And I'm also open to Mary's recommendations if us meeting is not as effective. I think it will be because we have now clear what we're doing, the clear topics, and then we can decide like action items and then move things. Well, my recommendation would be to do better at moving things forward in between meetings through email. It's like we meet and then things don't move until we meet again. So that would be my recommendation. But did you have another suggestion, Mary? Okay.
So are all the committees as they stood now, did the board dissolved?
So I would recommend that with the vein of, I guess, community engagement is still something we want to do, but more still in service to the housing. So yes, I'm deeming, not that I have that power, but I would recommend that we just move all into one ad hoc committee.
I'm looking to the current housing committee and trying to figure out if there's anything that we're working on that could not be dissolved. I don't really want to be chair.
It's gonna get funneled into another.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we just for now have housing be all of our discussion?
Yeah.
And we talk about sharing, have other
Okay.
meetings maybe later.
Great.
Sure, y'all can think about it.
Chairs for like ad hoc projects
Exactly.
that come out
Yes.
of housing.
Like I'm thinking the summit, there could be a.
Yes.
Yeah.
A chair for the summit, a chair for a letter, a chair for.
Okay.
Great. I like
Sounds good.
Oh, thank goodness, I'm no longer chair of the housing committee.
No, I think I still think there should be
Not ready.
someone else overseeing it, but I guess because I'm chair, I have to oversee it all. So that's, so
You can just do stuff.
I was hoping for a little bit more action items, but I think it's clear we're gonna all meet again for our community. I'm sorry, can't get community out of my head. for our ad hoc meeting in April to discuss a little bit more of our marching orders related to this, but we have, I'll reiterate it again, y'all can think about it and tell me this is not what we're gonna focus on. But we're gonna have focus around stakeholders within the housing community, again, stakeholders around specifically zoning, and then stakeholders around or efforts around home ownership lost by Black owners in the community. Okay. Just making sure no one's like, no, that's not it. Okay, so we're gonna open comments from the public. Do we have anyone online? Okay, so the commission welcomes comments and questions and commits to listening carefully and thoughtfully to what is presented. A maximum of 16 public comment time slots are allowed per meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. The commission requests that members of the public refrain from engaging in personal attacks against commissioners and staff members, and ask that comments and questions focus on matters related to human rights within the city. Do we have any comments? Oh, sorry. If you're on the phone, you press *9. But there's nobody.
There's some constraint, like, I can't remember how the SOP reads exactly, but if you're having trouble using the virtual interface, the number you can call is. Yeah, let's say it.
If you're having trouble using the virtual interface, you can also call the number 434-981-8537.
And we'll help you, walk you through getting on the Zoom. We're not going to take your call through that phone.
And we'll walk you through getting on the Zoom.
Okay, no, nothing. Okay, so then there's no commissioner response to matters by the public. Any commissioner updates? Hurry up, we do.
Oh, just thank you, Commissioners, for the plant and the car.
Yes, thank y'all for the plant and the card. Did you do that, Jeanette?
It's from everybody.
Oh, thank y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't have updates, but I always want to say my appreciation for you guys in doing this work. We've done a lot of great work. We're getting better every year. We're getting clearer about who we are and our mission and our power that we have. And so it is a pleasure to work with you guys in tandem and just all the work that we did. I'm just really proud of even this, like we rallied together. We have some clear next steps for what we're going to do. So just so appreciative of that. Anything else, Todd? Okay, so if anyone is in agreement, we will officially adjourn the meeting at 7:59 p.m. Eastern. Well done.